and I still get chill bumps every time I tell this story because I did then, because that was an epiphany for me. I realized, wow, here's the heart and soul. God's balance sheet does catch up.
Yeah.
And you can't disrespect and abuse life forever. I get all choked up. I've still got that little yellowed piece of paper in his handwriting where he wrote down these, and it was 22 full-time salaries.
Isn't that how many you have right now?
Yes, that is how many we have right now.
From worm pea to killing 40,000 elephants in Africa, to massive green yards in churches. Joel and I talked about all kinds of things, about how God's creation and the soil and everything really plays together. Man, oh man, we had a great conversation about life and farming. And if you want to see a bald goober embarrass himself with the world's foremost regenerative farmer, you're going to want to watch this episode. It's pretty stinking hilarious. So on that note, the audio for the first couple minutes, probably the first 10 minutes, is going to sound a little different than after I hit a button, okay? It's pretty stinking great. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks. This episode of the Plain Values podcast is being sponsored by my friends at Azure Standard. My friend Spencer just told me about a new program that they have launched. It's called Around the Table. And Around the Table is this beautiful synergy between Azure and their food and their trucking and the local church. Here's how it works. You set up a drop, you choose a coordinator, you order your food, and you pick it up. And the church gets a small percentage back to put into any ministry that they want. It is a fantastic opportunity to encourage and help the churches get to know the people in their own backyards. I love it. It's wonderful. You can call Spencer at 971-200-8353. 971-200-8353, or you can shoot them an email at aroundthetable@azurestandard.com and tell them Marlon sent you.
So hold my hand, think of me sweetly with a graveyard flower.
What I am seeing are some pretty amazing, I call them biological fertilizers, bioferts. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the trade name, bioferts. And for example, last year up at the Food Summit here in Sugar Creek, mm-hmm. A guy, I was looking at I always, when I go to these fairs, I always look at vendors, see what's out there, what's new. And so I went by this guy's trailer, and maybe you saw him. He was an earthworm guy. He was a worm. He had these IBC totes with worm beds, mm-hmm. and he had a spigot at the bottom draining off. I call it word pea.
Yeah,
it's the slick exterior from an earthworm.
The slime.
Okay, and it drains when you have a worm bed. It actually drips down.
Oh my!
Okay, this stuff. Yeah. And I ran into an outfit in Australia called NutriSoil. I'll write that down so I can get it. NutriSoil. And that was a big confinement dairy farmer that tried to solve his manure problem. And he started experimenting with worms, and basically developed windrow worm piles with a catchment at the bottom to catch this drainage from these long windrow worm. I mean, 150 foot long worm piles, 20 of them. I mean, this was serious. Okay, all this big, 500 cow dairy outfit, and started applying that worm to the soil and worm cast that worm. I call it worm pea. And make a long story short, their brand name is NutriSoil. And when I was there, I met a family that farmed like 3,000 acres of wheat in Western Australia, dry country. Mm-hmm. It's 12 inches of rainfall.
Right.
And they were buying up sterile cropland for pennies on the dollar that had been chemicalized to death with fertilizer. using this NutriSoil, buying this from this guy, and in 5 years, tripling production, no chemical fertilizer, and selling it at 20% above market value. And they were flipping flipping land, thousands of acres, buying at pennies. It was abused, buying it up for pennies. This won't grow anymore. I can't get anything to grow.
Yep.
They start putting this on, and within 5 years, it doubles or triples production. There are worms. It looks healthy, and people say, "Man, I'd like to buy that." And they flip it and they sell it, and then they go buy other.
Hold on. Okay, that's an unbelievable idea.
Yeah.
Who's buying the land, and what are they going to do with it? Are they going to just farm it back to death?
So this couple, their business was remediating and flipping farmland. Some of it might continue to be bioferted. Others are going to be, it's going to go back to chemical fertilizer. It'll go through another 10-year transition and go to pot, and then they'll come back.
Okay.
Are you recording?
You know what? No, I'm not, actually.
That's fine because this audio is actually pretty good, but just hit record and keep going.
Joel.
This is episode 2. Bear with us.
Episode 2.
I am so sorry.
You're only young once, and it's only first once.
Am I red? I feel like the temperature went up about 20 degrees. Okay. All right. That's too stinking funny. Seth, thank you for catching that now. Okay. All right. All right. All the color will eventually drain back out of my face.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, boy, okay. The question that I had when you were talking about
I didn't think we were recording because I figured we were just this was prepping.
No.
But, and you'll guide the
This is-
discussion, but no, this is, yeah.
and I will.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
no, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
So this morning, we had a whole bunch of rain the last couple days. Big
Right.
storms went through. Every chance I get, my wife and I, and we're training our kids slowly to save earthworms. Every chance we get,
Right.
they come in the garage, they're on the concrete, we have a little pad
yeah.
there. We pick them up and we throw them into the gardens, right?
Yeah.
Every single time, I somehow got to get rid of the slime, right? I mean, a big crawler has a bunch of slime on it.
Yeah.
How does that slime work its way through the soil to drain out the bottom? How does that work?
I don't know how it works. All I know is that when you heap up these beds, when you have a heaped up bed like this,
Yeah.
there is drainage in it. And I've run into people that are doing this in North Dakota, New Zealand, Australia. This guy in near Cincinnati last year at Sugar Creek had these worm things, and he came up to me and he knew who I was.
Yep.
And he comes up to me just as confident as anything and says, "I can double your production."
He said it to you.
To me. Well, I was so intrigued. I looked at his setup. I said, "This is pretty cool." So I bought his book and read it about earthworm pea
Yeah.
and how you could develop this. And so I've run into Spain. I mean, a guy in Spain, he has vineyards, and this is his whole program. And he does these bioferts and compost teas and cookery. And it's not heat cookery, but you put like a big tea bag of compost and you let it simmer.
Yeah. Just cook
for
down.
several days. Yeah. Anyway, I think right now that this biofert movement is the cutting edge of kind of the next generation biological production.
Yep.
I think it is.
So this leads me to a question, down on my list quite a bit. Right. I told you earlier about Gabe Brown and Rick. Is it Carter?
Yeah,
Rick Carter in Indiana.
Indiana. Mm-hmm.
I just watched the documentary called Common Ground, and you've seen it, I'm sure.
I know about it. Yes, I haven't looked at the whole thing, but
Okay.
I know the guys. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to me. 12 years ago, now bear with me, this is a little bit of a longer segue into this, but 12 years ago, Alan Savory jumps on a TED Talk, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
Where
Oh, yeah.
he talks
Numerous
about
times. Yeah.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's talking about this whole issue of desertification, and one of the most poignant things in that whole 20 minutes, in my mind, is where he shares his biggest blunder of his life and his career.
Killing all those elephants.
40,000 elephants. 40,000 elephants. My first question is, what do you do with the carcasses? I mean, that's a lot of elephant. I mean, I hope they fed the folks around.
I have no idea. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of stuff. So he gets up there and he says, 12 years ago, he says the last best hope of mankind is planned grazing. Okay, that's 12 years ago.
Right.
Then in the last couple, 2, 3, 4 years, you've got these documentaries, Kiss the Ground, Common Ground, Woody Harrelson, Jason Momoa coming out, and they're talking about, this basically the last best hope of, mankind to save itself is regenerative agriculture.
Right.
How does it make you feel? What do you think when? Because this is the imagery that I see in my head. These guys, these scientists, these ecologists and climatologists are trying to climb the mountain to save the planet, and they get up there, and you and Gabe Brown and a bunch of those other guys are sitting there saying, "Hey, welcome home," right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, to be straight up, I feel a little bit like Cinderella. I've been in the ashes all my life, and suddenly you get invited to the ball, and there's a seat at the table for you, and that's a powerful thing in any culture. Teresa and I got invited by a benevolent, wealthy, functional medicine doctor to go to the Maha Ball on the inauguration day in Washington D.C. when Trump was inaugurated. And they had 29, 30 balls. And one of them was the MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again, RFK Jr. And so we've never been to a ball before. That's not our thing, but it was pretty nice. Yeah. And we say, how do you say no to this? So we go to this thing, and there's 50 tables of 10. There's 500 people there, and Del Bigtree, who kind of ran RFK Jr.'s campaign, he gets up. And he asks. I mean, they had numerous luminaries there, making little dinner remarks, 3 or 4 minutes, and he gets up and he asks, how many of you are parents with vaccine injured children? Mainly autism, but there are other things, autoimmune things, different things. Yeah, and I couldn't count the hands, but there had to have been 100 to 150 hands went up. It was a major portion, and I still get chill bumps every time I tell this story because that was an epiphany for me. I realized, wow, here's the heart and soul of what's driving this, and these people have been laughed at, pushed to the margins. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. They've been censored, deplatformed. Pushed to the ashes of society, and the energy in that room, just the emotional outpouring that suddenly they had a seat at the table, they had a voice, and they had a champion was just unbelievable. And so basically, the non-chemical, I'll just call it the non-chemical agriculture practice has been in the same situation. We have been, I've been called by farmers in my area. I've been called a bioterrorist. I've been called Typhoid Mary. I've been called a starvation advocate because we all know, compost can't compete with chemicals. And I've been on radio shows. Which half of the world do you want to starve? Because we know we can't feed them your way. I mean, this is my life. I've been in this, and now as the chemical approach has kind of run its course, if you will. I mean, they're starting to run out of ideas. I just clipped an article out of the this week's Economist magazine talking about fungi and how and they're now invading people's bodies, and they can't develop chemicals fast enough to stop it because fungi adapt so quickly to to our chemical approaches, and we didn't run this course as fast as many of us that were in the movement early thought we would. All right,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll agree with that, but eventually God's balance sheet does catch up.
Yeah.
And you can't disrespect and abuse life forever until finally that catches up. And I feel like we're starting to catch up now. I mean, that balance sheet is starting to come home. And so those of us who have answers, real sustainable answers, long-term answers, that don't depend on the bank and don't depend on Monsanto and don't depend. We're now actually being asked to offer some advice, and it's kind of cool.
Jumping into the details of the mycorrhizome, all that stuff underneath the ground.
Right.
That it was an epiphany for me when I forget which one of this, that I saw it, but I told Joel, I told my wife, I said, doggone it, I have to start doing the rotation on our sheep and our two little cows. I have to do our pasture's only 6 or 7 acres.
Right.
And they're keeping everything somewhat, down, but I'm not letting it like you say that teenage grass, that poof, that real shooting up.
Right.
That's what I'm not letting the grass do.
That's right.
And we've only got 22, sheep and lambs, whatever. But that's what makes the roots slough off, and that's what pushes the carbon into the soil, and you grow your topsoil that way, right?
Yeah. Well, the whole thing here is that as farmers, we're harvesting the sun. I mean, ultimately, we're harvesting the sun
Through photosynthesis.
Through photosynthesis, the sun is the driver, and of course, there are wonderful spiritual applications. This is everything drives us. The energy comes from the SUN. In a spiritual life, everything comes from SON. All right.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
Right.
But we're harvesting sun energy, and so this for photosynthesis, it grows plants, and the plants either are decomposed on site, or they're eaten and decomposed. I view the animal as basically a NASCAR compost pile. In other words, the digestion does in 24 hours what a compost pile does in 6 months.
And they're pooping it right out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's coming right out in a concentrate form. So since grass grows in a sigmoid curve, it starts slow and then goes real fast, and then as senescence sets in, it starts to slow down. I call the first part diaper grass, then teenage grass, then nursing home grass. That's just the way I try to present it, so people can understand this S curve. So obviously, if you can keep your grass in that juvenile fast growth stage, you're going to harvest a lot more solar energy than you would if you keep it either in diaper stage or in nursing home stage, and so the only way to do that is to deny the animal's access as it enters that juvenile phase and becomes grazable long enough to graze, to deny them that so the plant can go through that burst of growth. And so, we've been doing this now for 60 years, and we lease, we lease, 12 properties in the area, and over the 30 years we've been doing this, not one single property have we leased, and we get some really poor ones. We're like we get the dregs. It's kind of like you don't go to the alternative doctor until you've exhausted all the conventional stuff, and so there's not a single farm, legal property that we've leased and started grazing that we didn't double its production in the very first season.
In the first year.
In the first year, and that's not with any inputs except except fencing and water. I mean, you move these, and so we'll put 400 head of cattle on 3 acres for a day. And you just move them, but they're grazing tall stuff, and stuff that's been allowed to get tall because we've denied them access to everything before.
Yep.
And so, so one of the fun things that I do when I get in crop country is do a side by side budget of corn versus cows, and I just keep it real easy, and typically. I'll say, well, I don't grow corn, so you guys help me. I got a room full of old farmers, and of course they start, how much corn are you going to grow? 160 bushels an acre, 180 bushels, and everybody starts. So, you come to a consensus. All right, let's take an average. All right, we're going to grow this much. How much are we going to sell it for? Well, they argue, and you get a number, and how much seed going to cost, and how much fertilizer going to cost, and fuel, the harvesting, all that. You make a budget, and you end up with whatever it is, $250, $300 an acre margin. It's not net profit because you haven't paid your taxes or things like that. But at least you've got a margin. All right. Then I go over in the other column and I say, all right, well, let's do the same thing on the same land, and we're going to grow cows, and we do a budget there. And I have done this for decades. Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Iowa. I mean, the heartland of America, and in different, corn fluctuates, cattle fluctuate. All right,
yep.
And I have never done this without the cows. Again, under good management. I mean, the reason nobody can imagine this is because nobody manages their animals well.
Right.
Not even small farmers. They just have them out there in this little patch, and the patch just stays 2 inches tall, and it never grows anything. And so, but I know what mob stalking, herbivorous, solar conversion, lignified carbon sequestration, fertilization can do. And so I'm assuming good management, and we make a budget for cows over here on the right side. And I've never had it to where the cows don't beat the corn by $200 to $250, sometimes $300, $400 an acre.
Wow.
In margin.
Every single time.
Every single time. Been doing this for years and years and years.
Is that then slaughtering the beef and selling it?
No, that's what I typically do. Is we're going to buy calves in the spring at the sale barn, and we're going to keep them 8 months, 240 days. We're gonna put about 350 pounds on them. They're going to gain a pound and a half a day,
and then sell them.
And then sell them in the fall. So that's one of the big arguments of crop farmers. Well, the beauty of this, I can go on the Caribbean in the wintertime. I don't have, because corn doesn't jump fences and get out on the road.
They plant and they harvest.
They plant and they harvest, and they go to the Caribbean for the winter after they've farmed the government with subsidies.
Right.
And so I try to make this as apples to apples as possible. That's why I don't put any labor in it. I don't put any labor in it.
Yep.
All right. The time it takes to harvest and plant and all that stuff, that's that labor. The labor to move the cows around, that's that labor.
Yep.
They equal out. Okay.
And if you're running cows, you ain't going to the Caribbean. I mean, theoretically,
through the winter.
That's right.
Yeah. But by buying stockers in the spring and selling them in the fall, you don't have to make any hay. There's no hay. There's no equipment. I mean, you have zero equipment.
Look at how much time and money they would save on fuel and tractors and all of it.
Yes, and
everything.
The animals self-fertilize, and so you end up with this great positive. You get and what's funny is that when crop farmers look at that, they get really squeamish. They start. I've done it for Amish, a lot of Amish, and they look around. They're pretty. They're pretty stoic,
So let's pause right there. Why are not more doing it?
A couple things. One is they've never been taught. They've never been told. Nobody's ever presented them this vision.
They've literally never heard this before.
Never heard it before. Never heard it before.
Wow.
Number two, the only thing they know about cows is, and sheep or in animals, is that that they're constantly sick. and the continuous grazing. I have friends that have cows, and they don't, get. They don't run 1 cow per acre. They run 1 cow per 3 or 4 acres.
Right.
Okay. Well, in our county, our average cow days per acre, a cow day is what 1 cow will eat in a day. That's our standard measure. Every vocation requires some sort of standard measure. To an orchardist, it's a bushels. To a banker, it's dollars. To a carpenter, it's inches. Okay. So,
Yep.
And for us as graziers, I'm the grazier. The cow is the grazer.
Yep.
Okay. For us, it's the cow day. It's what 1 cow will eat in a day. So we convert everything to a cow equivalent. So you might have a bull, he's 1.5 cows. You might have a 2-month-old calf. Well, that's 1/5 of a cow. All right. So you convert everything to a cow equivalent. So you've got a standard measure in a cow day. In our county of Virginia, the average cow days per acre in a grazing situation is 80 cow days per acre. In other words, 1 acre will feed 1 cow equivalent, 1 cow for 80 days a year, or
on
80
1 acre.
On 1 acre,
Okay.
or 80 cows for 1 day a year. Are you with me?
Okay, yes.
80 cow days, 80
Yes.
cow meal days, per year, all right?
Per acre.
Per acre. On our farm, we average almost 400. And we haven't bought a bag of chemical fertilizer or planted a seed in 60 years. All right? I'm not bragging.
Hold it.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. That's
Well, it is unbelievable. So when you say, well, why don't people do this, is because they are assuming the 80 cow day paradigm, not the 400 cow day paradigm.
And they would get there.
Absolutely, they would get there. And the thing is, cropland is so much more responsive, so much faster to respond than most of the people that Alan Savory's dealing with. You mentioned him, are in the desert.
Right.
They're in low rainfall. They're in
It's Africa.
Yeah. Africa's got some pretty good rainfall, but a lot of the people doing it in the U.S. They're in Colorado, they're in Wyoming and Idaho, Nevada, and so typically, because grain has always been the holy grail of agriculture, always, because grain was always expensive.
Okay.
Before this idea of cheap grain is very, very recent. Up until the mid 1800s, 1900s, once we had petroleum and mechanical harvesting and planting, tractors, if you will, grain was expensive. Read Thomas Jefferson's farm book. If we have equivalency today in the ratios of values of commodities in his day, wheat would be $25 a bushel.
Oh my goodness.
Chicken would be $15 a pound
Instead of 3, 4, 5.
And beef would be $5 a pound. It was the herbivore, beef, goat, lamb, that was cheap because that could be grazed on something that didn't require tillage. And when tillage is walking all day behind an ox with a sharp stick, and then you have to hand plant, you have to scythe and hand harvest, you have to flail and winnow, and you end up with a little bit of seed on a hard floor, and you gather it up and you try to put it in a jar that's protected from rats and mice before Butler buildings come along. It was very, very expensive. So grain was always the holy grail of agriculture because it was the diamond, it was the gemstone.
It took so much.
Yeah. But today with cheap energy, mechanization, grain for the first time in human history has become cheap, and that has completely skewed. It has skewed the relative value of the different things, compared to the eons of history.
This episode is sponsored by my friends at Kentucky Lumber. A few years ago, Lisa and I were looking at redoing the wood flooring on our top floor for the kids' bedrooms. And she was doing a bunch of research, and she came back one night and she said, "Marlon, I found this great company called Kentucky Lumber. We had never heard of them before, and she saw and felt something that really resonated deeply with her. And the more that I learned about Derek and his team, the more I understood why. They're an incredibly giving family. They've adopted a couple kids. They've fostered a couple kids. They live their life the way we want to live our life, and train their kids in the way that the Bible tells us to do, to the very best of their ability. And we've been able to get to know them. Guys, if you need any kind of wood products, from flooring to trim to anything else, you can find them at drywallhaters.com. So, big question here, in my mind. Cheap grain in the last 50 years, 100 years, you said late 18s, early 19s, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Could that be part of the gluten issues? All of the health things.
Right.
Am I onto something there?
Yeah. Well. I mean, you have the hybridization, the breeding, where what we've done is we've shortened the stalk. You know, if you go to rye, for example, look at rye grown in 1900. It's 8 feet tall.
Rye was 8 feet tall?
Yes, sir.
It's 2 feet tall now.
I know. So what plant breeders have done is they have shortened the stalk and the leaf relative to the amount of grain, because it just makes it easier to harvest. We don't need, back in the old days when we had draft power, horses, oxen, mules, you needed a lot of straw to bed down the animals in their stalls and their stables. And so the straw, the stems and the leaves were very valuable,
right?
Because that's how you kept the animals healthy in their stalls.
It made perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely. But as we eliminated animals, we didn't need stalls, we didn't need straw anymore. Well, straw just got in the way of the combine.
Yeah.
And so not only that, but the taller the straw, the thinking was you can't grow a big heavy grain on a long stall because it can lodge, it can fall over. Okay, so you squatty down you shorten down the stem, and you can put a heavier head on that thing,
and it's going to hold up in the wind.
And it's going to hold up in the wind, and you don't have any straw to fool with to go through the combine. You can cut off these heads, and you don't have any straw. And so if you read, for example, the book Wheat Belly. That's the whole thesis of that book about gluten intolerance and celiac disease, is that this whole gluten has followed the trajectory of changing the grain to plant ratio. Now, there are other people that say it's caused by the fact that we don't allow the grain to go through any fermentation anymore. So it used to be you had to put it in a shock.
Yep.
And when you put in a shock in the field, dew came, and there was a drying wetting over a period of 10 days or so, while it dried down enough that you could put it through a threshing machine and get it in a grain bin, and it wouldn't mold. Okay, so you got to get it dried down, and that can't happen on a stalk. It can't get dry enough on a stalk without shattering. So there's this fine line, and I know people that maybe. I'm getting into weeds here with grain production that most people don't realize. If you let it dry enough to put it in a bin on the stalk, the sheath, the hull, the husk around the grain gets too brittle, and the grain actually, it's called shattering. It actually falls to the ground. You lose it. All right.
The kernels.
The kernels. Yes. What you eat. Yeah.
Okay.
The kernels fall to the ground.
Okay.
And so the way to not have that happen was to cut it a little bit greenish, put it in a shock. All right. So it would dry down and get it and get the capillary action of the stalk connected to the ground done.
And then dry that out through the stalk.
And it would, and that helped to dry out. And then you could go along and you could take those shocks and put them through a threshing machine and get your grain out. And so what another big train of thought is that now that we don't shock it, but we simply green harvest it and dry it down with natural gas, the grain never goes through this dampness, drying, which actually is a bit of a fermentation process. The fermentation changes the enzymes within the grain head itself,
Okay.
which affect the gluten.
And how it
And
is going to be received in our body.
And then how it's received in our bodies. Yeah.
That is amazing.
And that's why, Weston A. Price Foundation, they say don't eat any grain that's not fermented. So you should soak grain. You should make sourdough bread rather than regular grain bread. I mean, there's all kinds of things. I'm not a scientist. I don't know which one of those threads, and it could be a combination of all of them. That there's a bit of truth in all of them. But for sure, the plant to grain, the plant to seed ratio has changed, 200-300% in all the grains, wheat, barley, everything. It's changed dramatically in the last.
That is really, really, really interesting. You drive around here every fall, and you see the Amish out shocking their wheat, and it takes them a long time, and it's work.
Yes,
it
work.
is work.
It's backbreaking work.
It is
sure
work.
Is.
My dad, grew up doing that as a kid.
Yeah.
I think Gene Logston talks a lot about shocking.
Yes.
In his books.
Yes, and he talks a lot about. He has a whole book on this stable bedding and how static bedding historically. I mean, listen, in
8 feet rye. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I ran into a guy. We do this large scale composting when we feed hay. We feed under an awning, just a shed roof, and we use wood chips and junky hay and corn fodder and things to soak up all the 50 pounds of sloppy goop coming out the back end of a cow every day, which is gold for us.
Yep.
And so we add corn to it. The corn ferments. The cows are making it anaerobic by tromping out the oxygen, and then we put pigs in. The pigs then seek the fermented corn, aerate it, inject oxygen. It turns from anaerobic to aerobic compost, and we spread that on the fields. One of the biggest reasons farmers don't like to do large-scale composting is because they don't want to fool with all the carbon and the turning. But with pigs turning it, so I ran into a dairy farmer in Ontario, actually, who didn't have any woods on his place, but he totally bought into this composting, pig aerating, deep bedding system. And so he grew 2 acres of ancient long-stemmed rye, 8 feet tall.
Okay.
He let the grain get almost ripe in it. So the stalks are now they're brown. Okay, they're not green anymore. And with that long stem rye, he said, I can make 800 small square bales an acre.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, 600 because he made a total of 1,200 bales of this straw, and he just baled it with the seeds in it. So when he used it for bedding, the seeds for the pigs were already in it.
And they could eat it.
And they could go in. So we use corn. He was using rye, and the same thing.
Same thing.
And the beauty is, if you've ever mucked out stalls under straw, you can break some handles trying to pry that. The beauty of the pigs doing this is the pigs rip it all up and tear it all up, and so when you shovel it, it's just compost. It's just beautiful, beautiful material, and so he figured out his own approach to doing the compost approach, and it was wonderful.
Wow. Oh, that's brilliant. Let's talk about your dad.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your dad.
Okay.
You told a story here a long time ago about your dad driving an old, was it a station wagon, where he ripped the seats out? He didn't have any doors. I've tried to share that story on your behalf a couple times, and I know that I've gotten the details wrong. Tell us about your dad.
So my dad was, one of the next to the Lord, the biggest blessing in my life was growing up in a home that didn't that didn't run away from being different. Both mom and dad had no peer dependency. They didn't care what anybody else said,
And they embraced it.
and they embraced it. It wasn't reluctant. It was And so, is it any wonder that I'm now the lunatic farmer, and I embrace the lunatic farmer, and that's become my handle?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to come up with a handle that is unique in the world. If you Google lunatic farmer, there is nobody else
Joel
in the world.
Salatin
That's right.
right
It's
there.
me. It's pretty cool. So anyway. So Dad was very much, I mean, the older I get, the smarter he was. I mean, sometimes you have that happen.
Yep.
And so early 60s, we get on the farm, and we need a vehicle to haul calves and chickens and feed and, different things around. And so, most self-respecting farmers would get a pickup truck. I mean, that's what you're supposed to get, is a pickup truck.
Yep.
And he said, but a pickup truck, he said, that's a kind of a single-use thing. I can't take all the kids, with 3 kids, can't take the kids with me and all that. And so he bought, a neighbor had an old 1957 4-door Plymouth car. He bought this thing for $100, took all the doors out, took all the seats out. Well, that makes a pretty big room in there. I mean,
Right.
all the way back to the back of the trunk.
Right.
I mean, it's almost 12 feet.
It's long.
It's long.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a big room in there, and this was before auto inspections, and
love it.
and seatbelt laws mandatory.
Yep.
And so he had just inverted an old, one of these old galvanized buckets.
Turn it around.
and put it on where the seat was. And
Did
sat,
you weld it down?
No.
You
It just sat there.
just
sat
sitting there.
So imagine this, no doors, no seats. And he drove this, he had an accounting job. He was an accountant. And he drove this to clients. He'd put on his suit and his bow tie and have his, back in those days, you had this 50-pound adding machine, There wasn't any Texas Instruments little calculator.
Yeah.
And he'd take that and he'd go, but then he could stop by the auction barn and buy a couple baby calves. He could go get,
In the suit and tie.
yeah, in the thing, and bring and us kids, we could sit on chicken crates. That's kind of shorter for kids, or sit in them, sit on them with our feet inside the chicken crate, and that was our multi-use machine. So is it any wonder that today, self-respecting farmers are supposed to have side-by-sides, right? We're supposed to have, ATVs, side-by-sides, four-wheelers, that sort of thing. And so since I'm not a self-respecting farmer, I get to have, and these things are expensive.
Oh.
They're $20,000, $21,000, $22,000. They're up there. I mean, a John Deere Gator, these are expensive things.
Yeah.
And so what I have is a $3,000 Jeep Cherokee, high mileage. It's got 200,000 miles on it, but it's cheap. Millions of them made, easy to work on. I've got a windshield and a roof, and 4-wheel drive. The thing will climb up a tree, and I can carry 4 people besides me. All my farm junk, my tote box with insulators and all
your
tools,
fencing, everything.
stuff, and all that, and I've got a heater. In the cold, I can turn on a heater, and so anyway, that apple didn't fall far from the tree.
That reminds me of Louis Bromfield.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Driving around Malabar.
Yeah.
In his old Willys, right?
Yeah.
He had an
old Willys. Yeah, an old Willys Jeep. Yeah.
Wow.
And so this thing, even if it doesn't last more than 3 years, well, so what? You buy another one, and you're only $1,000 a year. You get a 4-wheeler. I mean, they're expensive to buy. They're expensive to work on. They're expensive to maintain, and those are sophisticated machines.
Well, they're all computerized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my old Jeep Cherokee, it's a workhorse.
I love it.
It's tough.
So let me go back. I actually looked up when you and I started communicating.
Oh, okay.
It was in the summer of 2016, and I don't remember. I think it was in the spring or the early summer of that year. That was the first time that I ever heard of Joel Salatin.
Okay.
And then you came to a local event here, for the Amish folks.
Right.
Thousands of people.
Right.
And I watched you on that stage. And you told the story about how your cows love when you go out to the field and they know there's a fresh paddock of grass coming.
Yeah.
They know.
They sure
and I
do.
watched you tell the stories, and I listened to the Amish people laughing their back ends off. And you had such a great way with just being a storyteller. And I remember I told my wife later, I said, that is a guy that I'm going to get to know. And so you and I started talking back and forth, and then eventually, you ended up writing for Plain Values for a long time. I mean, it's probably pushing 10 years now.
Yeah, wow, has it been that long?
And
time goes fast and you're having fun.
Well, Joel, you chose the title for the column is The Confessions of a Steward.
Right.
Talk about where that came from. As far as the the ideas behind
Sure,
it.
the ideas. So Confessions of a Steward, so ultimately, Marlon, we don't own this stuff. It's all God's stuff. I mean, God owns the water, the birds, the trees, the cows, the cattle on it. I mean, the courthouse says we own it. Courthouse even says we own the land. But you and I both know that God actually owns it, and we're on a pilgrimage, and we just get to in our pilgrimage step in to His stuff.
Yeah, and use it for a while.
And we either abuse it or we redeem it.
Yeah.
And so the Confessions of a Steward, I developed that that column whatever title because I've got plenty to confess. We don't always do it right, but I also have a lot of positive to confess to add to the discussion, and the steward part is absolutely that I don't own it. I'm just a steward of these resources. And so, so that was the impetus of it. It's a very, people ask, well, what keeps you going? And, my favorite thing is that I have the honor and privilege to step out that back porch every morning, when I'm home at least, and step into God's provision for humanity in His creation. And He could take care of all this world with the breath of His His voice. He could do it with angels. He could do it with cherubim. I mean, He could do it with any number of things. But He's chosen us. He's chosen us to be His hands and feet, to represent Him in caretaking this. And so I dare to ask, well, if it were my stuff, and I gave a gift of good land, it was all good, and now it's coming back desertified, low aquifers, poisoned water, a dead zone the size of Rhode Island in the Gulf of Mexico, three-legged frogs, infertile salamanders.
Yep.
I'd say, hey, somebody messed up my stuff. You got in my backpack and you messed it up.
Yeah.
And so that's always in my mind as I'm. In other words, I'm not in dour about this. I'm excited about the opportunity to participate, viscerally participate in this providence that God has given us. I view all physical creation as an object lesson of spiritual truth. So I want people, when they come and visit the farm, I want them to drive out the lane and say, "Oh, so that's what forgiveness looks like. Oh, that's what abundance looks like. Oh, that's what mercy looks like. That's what respecting and honoring life looks like. That's what I want them to think, and it will drive them."
Mm-hmm. That, it's easy. This is a bit of a left turn here, but it's easy at times to think about being pro-life as one thing. It's just about the abortion issue.
Right.
And it's so much more. I think pro-life goes into this world, it goes into end-of-life care, it goes into all these other aspects. And to actually be sincerely pro-life is so much more than just fighting for the unborn. That is wonderfully important.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Listen, Marlon, most of my career, and I do a lot of traveling and speaking around the world. And most of my career doing this, I have been with greenies, tree hugger, earth buffing. I mean, wonderful people. Okay, but liberal, more liberal, environmental
Right.
mindset, and I can tell you the amount of time I've spent in that world and on college campuses with these folks. When they, all right, let's back up. We as believers, we meet these people, and they're willing to chain themselves to a tree so the loggers can't cut it, or risk their lives out in a little dinghy on the ocean trying to rescue a baby seal, from some hunter, and they have no compunction at all of a squirming, hearing baby in the womb a minute before birth, ripping its arms and legs off and pulling it out. And we see that, what we call hypocrisy, contradiction. I call it philosophical schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And we're just speechless. We can't. That contradiction is just unspeakable for us. I can tell you, and this will be a shock to those of us most people in the faith community. I can tell you that when I'm around them, and they look at me and say, "Yeah," and when you guys go to your Right to Life and your Sanctity of Life rallies, and stop for Happy Meals at McDonald's on your way home, that's just as contradictory.
Get out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most people have no clue. Most people in the faith community have no clue that when we stand up on our righteous indignation platform and then serve Twizzlers and gummy bears in the nursery.
On styrofoam.
Yes, sir, on styrofoam. They view us with the same level of unspeakable hypocrisy as we view them. My favorite story on this was when I went to UC Berkeley in California. I've been there twice and spoken. UC Berkeley, let's agree.
That's intense.
Oh, that's intense. I mean, that represents the heart, if you will, of everything.
Yep. All the tree hugger.
Yep. All that. All
everything.
Right. So I go there, and two professors had me come and speak, and I did my slide program. I had 300 students there. It was a graduate studies program. And I did my normal, creation, God, pro-life. I mean, that's not what I was there to talk about, but it just comes out in my farm talk presentation. I don't hide it.
Yep.
And when I got done, these young people jumped up, standing ovation. I mean, they went nuts over it. So we get done. I finish, doing the chit chat that you do after you do a speech, and we go out for ice cream. It's dark, and I'm an ice creamaholic, So the two professors are going to take me out for ice cream. So fine. So we get outside the campus or the building, and it's dark. And under a street lamp, they stop, turn around, and kind of stopped me on the sidewalk and said, "We have a confession to make." And I thought, okay, I said, this is different, I'm not Roman Catholic. This is a kind of, so this confession to make. I said, "Oh, what?" They said, "We were scared to death for you." Said, we wanted you to come to present your story, but they said, during the Vietnam era, this is where the Vietnam protests were launched at UC Berkeley. And at that time, the students began starting a ritual that if a speaker came on campus and said something they didn't like, the audience would hiss. This is very hospitable, Marlon, but this is UC Berkeley after all, okay? But that's the way they would utter their contempt to the speaker of whatever the speaker had said. They said, combined, the two of us have been here, whatever it was, 20, 25 years, something like that. They said, this is the first time we have ever seen a speaker come to campus and use the word God reverently. Now, if you want to swear, that's fine. If you want to use it in vain, that's great.
No hissing there.
No. But the first time I've ever heard somebody use the word God reverently and not be hissed. Ever. And that was an epiphany for me. It struck me, this is the problem. This is our blind spot as a faith community. We we don't realize our inconsistencies in creation stewardship. They view us as a bunch of dominion, exploitive, conquistador, crusader. Look at our legacy. Look what I'm using
Right.
fairly loosely and collectively, but look what the faith community has done throughout history in the name of God.
Yep.
All right.
All the Crusades.
Yeah.
Everything.
Conquistador, in the name of the Queen, we kill you, Incas. You know, and what struck me was, and this was the conclusion. For the first time in these students' history, they found a true believer who, I didn't have all the answers, but who was willing to wrestle with the stewardship implications of it's really God's stuff, not mine. And so here I came with an quote unquote environmental talk from a creator worshiping mandate that I take care of this because it's his. I don't worship Romans chapter 1. I don't worship the creation, which is what they do. I worship the creator, but part of that worship is in stewarding his stuff the way he would want it to be done.
And it made sense to them.
And it made sense to them, and they were willing to forgive the 6-day earth thing. They were willing to forgive creation. They were willing to forgive God because here's a guy that's willing to wrestle with that issue.
And having the hard conversations about the styrofoam and all of those things.
Absolutely. I mean, in the average church in America,
That's amazing.
if you go in and dare to ask at a potluck, how about we use paper instead of styrofoam, or better yet, how about we go down to the thrift store, we'll buy a bunch of mismatched plates and stuff, and we'll wash them at the end.
The hissing comes out.
Yeah. The elders, the deacons, what are you, some kind of tree hugger, earth muffin, commie pinko, and you can't even have the conversation because environmental stewardship has been branded with a liberal engine. And I think that in the faith community, we have squandered so much equity, so much emotional equity with the world by being perceived as a bunch, it's all going to burn up anyway. Who cares? I mean, you hear this kind of stuff. And it's not, Rush Limbaugh, with the machine guns in the jungle shooting up the monkeys. That's not funny. It's not, I'm sorry, it's not funny. And it absolutely impugns our equity, our relational equity with the greater culture.
Boy, I could park there for a long time. Boy. That is absolutely fascinating. One thing that really gets under my skin is when I see churches and even big estates and big homes, and they are mowing 5 and 10 acre yards.
Yeah.
And I get it. Mm-hmm. But like you said, they're missing this unbelievable opportunity to invite the community in and help us grow a garden.
Take our church kitchens, turn them into commissaries, turn them into co-packing for entrepreneurs that want to use an inspected kitchen to offer bone broth and whatever to the community. I mean, chicken pot
It's
pie.
limitless.
It's limitless.
Absolutely limitless what you could do on that land.
And not only that, Marlon, we need to our especially our mega churches. We have lots of. I'm saying we're the church. I try not to use the church building as not, but we have mega fellowships of hundreds and thousands of people.
Yeah.
Why not that congregation adopt 6 or 7 farmers, and they're driving somewhere anyway. Well, instead of driving to Walmart, how about while you're when you leave the fellowship, everybody's got their box of vegetables and meat and whatever, food from local farmers. You could actually let half a dozen, 10, a big congregation of something between 500 and 1,000 people. There's a lot of those around they could literally support half a dozen, 10 farmers full time, and those farmers could quit their town job. They could come home and be with their families. They're desperate for just a couple more customers.
Yep.
But we don't integrate anything in this country, Marlon. We segregate everything. We segregate education. We segregate healthcare. We segregate
Yep.
we segregate manure from cows. We don't integrate anything. We are a complete Greco-Roman segregated, compartmentalized, individualized, disconnected,
Highly specialized.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
And we don't integrate anything. And so yeah, these are things that are very, very doable. And if a group of Christians, if a group of faith based people would do some of these things, suddenly all of that finger wagging and you bunch of hypocrites would go away.
Yep.
And we would suddenly get people to come in that had never heard of it before.
That's amazing. Let me, kind of bring this down to an end here. I'm so looking forward to meeting your dad. I just can't wait.
Yeah.
I just can't wait to meet your dad.
Yeah. You will.
What is it like for you? You are 68 years old.
Right.
You are the second generation of your dad's genius and visionary approach to farming.
Right.
Daniel is now probably, I'm 48, he's probably close to my age, right?
44.
44?
Yeah.
So you are watching him and his children take on the farm. What does it mean? What do you think of and feel when you look at where your dad started?
Yeah.
And then what you see in your kids and your grandkids,
Well-
and not to mention all the unbelievable interns that you have working there.
Right. Yeah. Well, our grandkids haven't formed their final, and we don't know where they're going to. And some of them, one of them might come, one of them might not. But fortunately, we have all these young people that even if it's not family, it'll still be, it'll still go forward.
It's an extended.
Yeah. And actually, it goes clear back to my grandfather, who always wanted to farm. He was a charter subscriber to Rodale's Organic Gardening and Farming magazine when it came out in 1945. He never did. Dad tried. And so in our family, we always joke it took us 3 generations, till we could. But that legacy of all those predecessors who lived a life a little bit under their means to create a launch pad for something better. most Americans today, modern Americans, are living above their means. The 50% 50% of Americans right now, half of all American households cannot put their hands on $400. In other words, if you needed $400, if you had something you needed $400 for right now, half of American households can't put their hands on $400.
Boy, that's sad.
That's remarkable. Okay, and so I come from this rich legacy of where generations before me lived a little bit under their means. And people that know me know I've always said, how little can I live on? Now, not how much can I make, but how little can I live on? I mean, imagine if that became the mantra, in the average, Christian family. I'm not about, building up wealth here, but when you look at historical where wealth developed, it's in living below your means. You don't have to buy every silver, bauble that comes on. And so, for me, and in fact, one of the, Dad and I didn't have very many disagreements. We had one. I remember it. It was when I came back to the farm full time. We were going to name it. We needed a brand. And so he just he was an accountant. Oh, well, we just call it Salatin Incorporated. That's what people do. Ford Motor Company. I mean, and I said, and I put my foot down. I said, no, Dad. I said, there might be a day when a Salatin isn't running this, and this is way bigger than us, bigger than our family, bigger than any of us.
You saw that back then?
Yes, I saw that in that moment.
Really?
Yes. And I said, no. I said, it's not going to have our name in it. And so we toyed around with stuff and came up with a polyface, the farm of many faces. And one of my, just to show you his vision, so he died at 66, which is really young to me now. But from his sickbed one day, so I came back to the farm full time September 24, 1982. And Teresa and I, we got married. We fixed up the attic in the farmhouse. We drove a $50 car. We saved half our paychecks, and within 2 years, we saved up enough we could live for a year without outside income.
No kidding.
In 2 years, and of course she quit working soon when Daniel came, and so we were at one paycheck. But I mean, Teresa's. I mean, we haven't talked about her, but she's just amazing. She can sew, cook, can, clean, drive tractors. I mean, she's just the quintessential farm wife, help meet, and so I made the break September 24, 1982. It took 3 years before, as I say, that we could exhale. Okay, we're going to make it. All right. That took 3 years. Well, Dad. So now we're at 85. Dad died in February of 88. All right. So he only really saw it 3 years after we kind of tipped over that. Okay, I think we're going to make it. All right. And so I don't know what it was, maybe 87. He calls me from his sick bed. And he says, "Come in, bring a pencil and paper." So I go in, and he says, "Let's write down how many salaries we could generate on this place." I mean, Teresa and I had just turned. We were just making a living. It was just us.
He's looking down
he's
there.
looking. I mean, I get all choked up. He's looking down. He saw them, and I've still got that little yellow piece of paper in his handwriting where he wrote down these, and it was 22 full-time salaries from a little place.
Isn't that how many you have right now?
Yes, that is how many we have right now. That's how many salaries are being generated. And if I did that exercise today, it would probably be 100. Okay? So this,
Oh, my goodness.
when you think about the average farmer is just immersed daily in scarcity. Oh, we call it the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse: weather, price, pestilence, and disease.
Yep.
And that's what everybody leans on their buggy or their I'm in Amish country, so I got to use buggy, or pickup truck, and complains about all day, right? Weather, price, pestilence, and disease. And Dad was just so far out there that this is not scarcity. This is abundance. And if we tap into God's patterns and the synergies of relational multi-speciation strategies, there's no end to this. And that's exactly where we are. And it's really been fun. So to see that vision and that legacy now, present itself is truly remarkable.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Last question. How can we pray for you and your family? How's your mom, by the way?
So Mom is 101, and she's failing. She's definitely failing, but she drove until 97.
Wow.
And our joke is we took the keys away from her in February of 2020. So our joke in the family is COVID came as a cosmic reaction to us taking Mom's keys away from the car. And so, here she is. She's at 101, and she's definitely failing. I mean, we're seeing a decline every week. I don't know how long she'll go. She's tough. She lives 40 feet or 30 feet outside of our house. Still lives on her own, but she doesn't do anything on her own. Like Teresa, every mother would want a daughter-in-law like my wife. Teresa bathes her. Cuts her depends off when she has an accident. I mean, I'm going to, but listen, it's just hard. I mean, she's a saint, and so yeah, she's still there, but her mind, she's mentally, she's not there. She's not home. And so we just pray that God just takes her. I mean, that she just doesn't wake up one morning. That'd be the ideal. We really don't want her to get bedfast. I mean, that would just be tough. But there she is. So to pray for. So I think for us, what's happened now is there is a wave now that is moving. There is a moving in the country. The Maha movement. I mean, I was just on Jordan Peterson. Just did a long interview. It just aired last week. Epoch Times. I was just down at Glenn Beck's in Dallas. And 2 weeks ago, I did, I think, 14 podcasts in 2 days.
Oh my goodness.
And so I'm becoming a spokesman, if you will, in this wellness space, wellness of land, wellness of people, wellness of culture, wellness of families, the whole space. And so the prayer is that we be able to metabolize this, that it not metabolize is the only word that comes to mind. We just the documentary The Lunatic Farmer just was released by Angel Studios. It's had 50 million impressions.
Wow.
And so we're just seeing this wave of interest and just God's placed me here, and I want to be. So the prayer is that I be faithful. I be faithful in metabolizing the platform and the articulation where God has placed me right now.
Well, I hope you know how much we appreciate you, Teresa, and your whole family, everything you guys do. And we have talked. I think you have a motor on your back end. I don't know exactly how you do it all the things you write and so just thank you so much.
Thank you, Marlon.
This has been fantastic.
Great. It's been a delight.
This episode is brought to you by Homestead Living magazine. Homestead Living is a monthly print magazine that interviews all the big names in the homesteading world, and they focus and educate in a wonderful way. You can learn more and subscribe at homesteadliving.com.
So hold my hand.
If you got anything out of this podcast, you will probably love Plain Values in print. You can go to plainvalues.com to learn more and check it out. Please like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Guys, love you all. Thanks so much.